All right. Hello, Oscar Fuchs. You are host of the Mosaic of China podcast. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Oh gosh, put me on the spot, why don't you? It is a podcast based here in China, as is yours, where I try to find interesting people who are making their mark in China. And that could be people who are spectacularly impressive, but it could be also very, very normal people who are just doing jobs like you and me. Each of them, in some way, have a different lens through which to understand life in China.
And you're available on most podcasting platforms, so we can find you easily.
You can find me easily there or here as well on YouTube.
Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah, actually, I not only have I seen you on your own program, but I also had the opportunity to see you on The Honest Drink, where they they didn't force you. They gave you alcohol and you drank it. You were like, oh, I don't really drink, but I'll drink some.
Oh dear. I don't know what I said on that podcast, but it does work. Drinking alcohol does make you talk a lot more than you think you will.
Well, it's a great program too, as is Mosaic of China. So you lived here in China 8 years, but kind of more than that, because you've lived in Singapore, you've lived in Hong Kong, you've lived in Asia for 18 years. Could you tell our listeners a little bit about your experience here in Asia?
Well, I first came in 1999. That was Japan.
Wow.
So my first experience in Asia was Japan. Then I went back to my home country, which is the UK, for just a few years. And then I've been in Asia ever since. So first of all, Singapore for just over 6 years, then Hong Kong for 3 years, and then now here on the mainland for 8 years. So it's been off and on since last millennium, I should say, not to make you feel old or myself.
A millennium ago, you were in the West.
Yes, that's right.
Well, okay, you have 10 questions apparently that you ask at the end of each of your shows. We usually ask one question, the same as everyone. If you could tell people back in your home country what China is like versus maybe the media experience that they're having of what China is like, how would you differentiate your experience from what you think that they may be told about life in China?
Yeah, I think in general, it's the same thing about how the world would depict where you live in the media as well. Let's say you're living in a big city in the States. Maybe people think, oh, it must be crime on the streets every single day. Or if you're living in France, for example, oh, it must be strikes every single day. I think it's the same thing in China. Yes, of course, there is an element of truth to what you hear, but it's not the everyday experience. It's the experience of living in a place is very much just on a human basis, just the same in China as it would be anywhere else. That's not to say that there aren't these geopolitical issues going on no matter where we are. China is by no means any exception, but it doesn't affect your day-to-day life. It doesn't affect your relationships with your friends and your neighbors, just as it wouldn't no matter where you are in the world.
All right, I'm going to ask one last question. Now, I asked this in the podcast that we just recorded with you, but I want to also ask it here. If you could tell us about one place that you visited or one memory that you have of your time in China, what kind of experience would you want to express? What sticks out in your mind?
I guess I really enjoy traveling around China. So maybe I would answer with one of the places that I've been to, which would be Guizhou. Guizhou province down in the south. It's not the richest province. It hasn't got that much infrastructure compared to some of the other, especially tourist destinations. But as a tourist there, you get a very different understanding of China because there aren't busloads of other tourists for a start. But the thing about that area is that it's very hilly, but it's beautiful. It basically is, where you can see all the terraced rice fields. There are certain parts of China, but Guiyang is one of them. The thing about the hills, though, is that historically, all the different people, they wouldn't necessarily be able to go across those hills back in the day. So there are different people living in different valleys. So you can go from one valley, which has a Miao village, to the next valley, which has a Dong village, to the next valley, which has a Gejia or a Shui. Like all these different people really condensed in one province, which it is fascinating. So you can see different architecture, there's different food, and there's even different sort of topology and different countryside as well, all within this very small area. So if you have a chance, I would definitely go to Guizhou.
Thank you so much for your time, Oscar. For those of you who are looking for a new podcast, please find Mosaic of China on your podcasting platform of choice. Bye.
Thank you, Jason. Bye-bye.